Yes sir, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy Denali, aka Don Squally, and today we are back with another Nissan Altima video, and today we are going to be taking care of, in what my opinion is the worst part about these Altimas when they come stock from the factory, and that is this massive wheel gap that we have here. So what we're going to be doing today is installing some front coilovers. These are Ksport coilovers meant for 02 to 06 Altima, 04 to 08 Maxima, if I'm not mistaken. I do have the whole set, both front and back, but I think just for today's video, I'm going to be installing the front because, to be honest, the back ride height doesn't really bother me. And for those of you guys who remember my last Altima, we had the racing line springs installed on that car, and it pretty much leveled out the car front and back, only lowered it about 0.5 inches in the rear and 2 inches in the front. And with these coilovers, I'm hoping to achieve kind of the same ride as I had on my last Altima. Now, I did try to install these quite a while back when I first got them. You guys will know I've had these for about 2 or 3 months, and I was just struggling with a bolt that actually broke on the driver's side. Well, this weekend I managed to heat the bolt up enough and hammer it out. So now the problem bolt is out, and we are going to hopefully be able to install our Ksport coilovers today, which is perfect timing because on the passenger side here, the stock strut is actually blown, and every time I go over a big bump, it just goes like this, bouncing up and down. Feels like the whole front end is going to fall apart. Now, with coilovers, your ride quality, probably compared to stock springs, is actually going to be worse. Which is why I'm only installing the front as of now. I live in Canada. This is my daily driver, and I'm hoping this car is going to last me till winter, through winter, and I don't want to have the thing completely slammed. I already own a slammed car, and it's, you know, it's a task just to drive it sometimes. So when I feel like I want to drive a lowered car, I'll jump in the G35. This right here is, it's just supposed to be my functional daily. So for today's video, I'm going to jack up the front of this car. Before we go and install one side completely, I'm actually going to break loose every single nut and bolt that has to come off in order to install these, just so I can ensure that we don't get halfway through the install and then hit a roadblock. Luckily, with that first bolt that broke, it was literally the first bolt that I went to go undo, ended up snapping, and the bolt was actually seized inside. Well, I'll show you guys once we get to that point. But if you guys are looking for a complete DIY, both front and back install video, I'm going to link that down in the description. I did already do an install video on one of my boys' Altima SERs. I'm going to say like 5-6 years ago, so your boy might look a little bit different. No beard, no funny looking hair, but if you guys are looking forward to just another Altima vlog, or even looking on how to install front coilovers or struts for your car, we're going to get right into it, man. Alrighty, so we're going to start on the side that initially gave me the problem. Now, this here was the bolt that was stuck basically here. When I went to go crack this nut, it broke off, and then this was pretty well seized inside. I thought it was rusted solid to this, I guess you could say, I don't know, control arm housing or something like that. So I ended up breaking a ratchet, a socket. I ended up torching it, trying my hardest to get this thing off, and what ended up working for me was just welding a couple big fat blobs on the top, which heated this up enough that I was able to twist it and then hammer the hell out of it to get it out. Now what you can see here is it looks like a lot of grease. The bolt was kind of widened by the corrosion and grease in here. I don't really know. Could be rust with just a bit of grease on it there, but this was totally seized in here. I had to hammer like a madman. finally ended up getting this out, which was basically stopping me this whole time from installing these coilovers. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is crack these two nuts. I'm going to crack the nut here that attaches to the sway bar end link. We're going to get our ABS sensor brake line out of the way. I'm going to do the same on both sides just to make sure that everything is cracked and coming off as it should. Then what I'm going to go ahead and do is unbolt the 3 bolts from the top and install each coilover one after the other. Now with old rusty Nissans, it's just par for the course. Broken, seized bolts, that's just the name of the game, so never expect anything to go very smooth. If you're anticipating a 2-3 hour job, which is what I'm doing, go ahead and double that, sometimes even triple it. So I'm giving myself lots of time. If we have to, we can leave the car on jack stands where it sits. I'll take the G to work tomorrow and we'll continue on the install, but I'm hoping that we don't have to. I got the air compressor all filled, so we are going to be using some impact guns on this. And yeah, man, with that being said, I'm going to start with this install real quick. Now, luckily for me, this strut actually blew. Poured a whole bunch of oil down onto all these bolts, so I'm hoping these are going to be relatively easy to crack. But once again, you never know when you're working on old crusty Nissans, man. I'm going to move on to what I'm going to call the biggest problem bolt in this whole install. That one cracked relatively easily, as well did that one. And then I'm going to go ahead, turn these bolts from the opposite side just to make sure that we don't have another seized issue. Oh, that hurts. Just a bloody shockwave running through my hands there on that one. Now, I could be wrong, but when I'm twisting this, it doesn't actually seem to be spinning. I'm going to try the bottom side here. Now, I could be wrong, but it feels like it's just spinning inside the socket here. Go figure. Wouldn't be a Don Squally video without something going wrong. So what I think I might do is just loosen out these bolts, see if I can hammer this in to get it loosened up just a little bit. I might have to heat it up again with the welder. But I'm going to go ahead, back these out, make sure they're just loose before I proceed with this install, because if there's not, there's no point in going ahead. Alrighty, so I got these backed up. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and tap this upper bolt. That one isn't moving. Watch your ABS line if you're doing what I'm doing. Alrighty, so not having any luck hammering, these really are not budging. The other sides, both bolts are free back and forth. So it looks like I'm going to have to use the welding technique again. Again, we're going to be just throwing some big fat beads on the end of this in hopes to loosen up whatever is inside here causing this to stay in place. Heat that bad boy up nice. And it does look like it's moving now. I'm gonna go ahead, throw a couple more fat beads on this side here. Gonna get Big Bertha on here, see if we can spin that any more freely. Still on there pretty damn good, I'll say. Alrighty, so as you can see, top bolt is free. Just had to heat it up a few times, get the impact gun on it, and just kind of back it out as easily as I could. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and do the same thing for this bottom bolt. Throw a couple big fat welds on here. And then obviously we're going to have to break it loose back and forth, back and forth. Then I'm just going to get the gun on it and try to back it out the same as I did the other one. Alrighty, and after struggling like a son of a bitch, both bolts are completely free on this side. Both bolts are free on that side. I already got the, I don't know if you guys can see that, the sway bar end link on this side is already off. So I'm going to go ahead, see if I can get that off of the other side before I start taking apart these front struts. But I think we're actually going to be able to install some coilovers, ladies and gentlemen. Hip hip hooray. Alright, so just going to go ahead and loosen these 14 mils on top here. Whoa. And before I get too excited, I'm going to go ahead and remove this brake line clip. Knowing me, I'll go ahead and drop the whole strut with that on there. Alright, so all of our lines are out of the way, top 4 bolts are off. Now we just got to back out these 17s here the rest of the way. There's one, almost. I think I probably should have left those bolts in the top, but what's done is done. With any luck, piece of crap will be out of the goddamn car. Woo! You have no idea how satisfying this is. I've been waiting a long time to get this thing out of the car. One side's out. Just gonna go ahead, snug this side up, and then we'll go ahead, take the other side off before I get too carried away. I'm gonna reuse that, I think. Just gonna go ahead, throw this little gasket on top here, and then if I'm not mistaken, this is the way this thing goes up here. Okay. It's looking like we're gonna have to jack up this entire arm in order to get this inside the knuckle. Alrighty, so I got it where it needs to be. Now luckily for me, I have a whole bunch of Nissan Altima bolts in there. That looks like a strut bolt. There's this one. No, it's definitely that one with that kind of head on it. So I'm going to go ahead, dig through my bolts here, find myself some new ones, since those ones were pretty much seized in there, and if I ever have to take these off, I don't want to have to struggle with them. So I'm going to go ahead, find myself some bolts, and get them all lined up. Alrighty, so I got my 2 used bolts here. So I'm going to go ahead, install one up top here, and one in the bottom. Now one thing I'm noticing is that this is already sitting quite a bit higher. I think this might actually be a little too low for what I'm looking for. But I am going to tighten everything up, throw a wheel on here. I guess I'll do the other side since the other side is set the same. And if we have to, we might be taking these off real quick and just doing some minor adjustments to get, I want my wheel gap to be about 2 inches from the top here, which I know a lot of people probably wanted to see me slam this bad boy, but I'm not gonna lie, it's not gonna happen. Not right now anyways. If this thing lasts me through the winter, I told myself that I would put the rear coilovers on and I would be lowering it quite a bit more. But for the time being, I just need it to be functional and, well, look half decent. Alrighty, so something I didn't think that I would be saying today. We've got one side of the coilovers installed. I'm going to jump over to the opposite side. Things should go relatively smooth over there. Then, like I say, I'm just going to snug everything up, put it on the ground. Now, another thing that I noticed is this top hole is bored out like either way, this way. I believe that's for camber adjustment, so I'm not exactly sure how to set the camber on this thing, but one thing I do know from running through tires on the G35 is that I don't want any camber. So I'm going to put the car down, see where our ride height is at, and then I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camber here. We also have camber on the top plates, but overall things are running relatively smooth. And again, going to make sure we take off our brake lines and ABS lines, just to do things properly. I think I might go ahead, refill my air tank just to get these two bolts off here. Alright, so I forgot to turn off the camera. Got both nuts off at either side. One. I think this guy's gonna want a little bit of finagling by the looks of it. So you can see the finagle happening. Well, I think that was too much finagling by the looks of her. So, two bottom bolts are off. We're gonna move to the top, remove the 3 14 mils up there. Hopefully. 3, you can see it drop just a little bit. Hooked on our ABS line there, and there's a mosquito biting my back. Perfect timing. And there you have it. Woo! Finally getting somewhere with these coilovers. I'll tell you what, I've been losing sleep over these things, I'm not gonna lie. Been absolutely losing sleep, wondering if I should sell them, if not. Well, we're halfway there anyways. Let's get that thing installed and see how we're looking. This tie rod end is absolutely shot, but truth be told, if your coilovers are good enough, you don't need sway bars. Alrighty, so camera died when I was installing this other coilover. Now, I explained a few things during that clip, so I'll just go through it again. One thing that does have to change is right here where the sway bar bolts into. That's going to have to spin around. I'm also noticing there's no clips like there was on the stock suspension to get your brake line as well as your ABS line out of the way. So we're just going to go ahead, zip tie those somewhere safe. Before the time being, I'm going to throw the tire on, lower the car down. I'm going to do a little bit of research as to exactly what position I'm supposed to bolt this top piece into. For now, just enjoying a stogie and a smoke, gather my thoughts. We're going to get this thing on the ground, see how it looks. Alrighty, so just going to drop this on the ground. Now, you can't see, but I do have about 2 inches up top. Obviously, these coilovers are going to settle a little bit, but I'm hoping with them being a stiffer spring rate that it's not going to settle too much once we lower this thing. And that's looking pretty good. About where I want to be honest, with the inch wheel gap looking good at the top, or at the back I should say. The only problem is we're still sitting on the jack, so I have a feeling this thing's going to lower just a little bit more. I think I'm going to have to use the blocks for this one. We're in low boy territory, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if we can get that jack out now. Ooh-wee. Not gonna lie, she's sitting pretty nice. Now we are on the block, so don't judge it by this. We're gonna do a little judgment here. And that looks pretty good. We're about, I don't know, an inch worth of gap right there. About 2 inches at the back. But for those of you guys who know my G35, I do actually prefer that rake look. Now, I didn't research the camber, but it's looking like that is pretty well flush right there. Just to double check, I don't know why this tire looks like it's turned out quite a bit more than that one. That's kind of weird. Gonna have to look into that, I think. So as far as the ride height goes, I'm pretty happy with the way this is sitting in comparison to the rear. Now what I think might have happened up here to get this wheel to kind of be turned like that is I don't think I tightened the 2 bolts on the bottom all the way. So I'm going to go ahead, jack this up. deal with those sway bar linkages, tighten everything up, and put this thing on the ground, and hopefully those wheels straighten themselves out, because that's a little annoying. Alrighty, so coilover is reinstalled, raining out, getting some nice cool air. So what I figured out is this joint up here, pivoting back and forth, actually affects the way this toes in and out. So I've got it to where I think it's going to be straight. Now I might have to adjust the camber plate on the top to get the top of the coilover to come out straight, because I think this wheel here is going to be kind of V'd in a little bit. But I'm going to throw the wheel on, we're going to do a little test drop, see if me raising it made any difference, and then we're going to go ahead and try to figure out if it's straight or if it needs to be, you know, adjusted one way or another. Alrighty, so it was definitely that top bolt that was affecting my toe in, toe out. As you can see, pretty much flush on that side and almost flush on that side. I might need a minor alignment by the looks of it. Let me see if I can straighten out the wheel a little bit more. So the wheel's pretty much as straight as it's gonna get. That one's looking pretty good. This one's actually cambered in a little bit, but I noticed on this side I still have a little bit more adjustment as far as the camber plate goes. On the opposite side though, we're pretty much maxed out. Now this is to straighten out your camber. If I were to put it this way, obviously it would give me more camber, having the shock sit at a bit of an angle. But I think what I'm going to do is jack it up, get it off the jack stands, and see how our ride height is looking. Okay, so I got everything installed, adjusted pretty much where I want it. As you can see, we got about an inch up front, a little bit more, maybe an inch and a half in the rear. Obviously it's sitting on blocks, so what I think I'm going to do is take it for a little bit of a drive. We'll find ourselves a nice parking lot and do a walk around, and I'll show you guys the profile of this thing. Alrighty, so just cruising down the road, and this thing drives straight as an arrow. Very nice. No binding or anything like that. So what I think I'm going to do, pull off to a little parking lot up here and do the little walk around and call this one a video, man. Alrighty, just pulled off to a little parking lot here, a bit of a breeze, so hopefully you guys can hear me alright. But this is what the car looks like with the coilovers adjusted pretty much the way that I want them. Now if you guys remember my old Altima, the 3.5 SE, we had a nice little rake look, had those racing line springs on the front and back, and it just gave it a nice look where it was kind of tilted down a little bit on the front. Now with the Altimas and the Maximas, the biggest issue with the way these things look is that front wheel gap. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll throw a picture if I can find one of my old Altima, what it looked like from the side. And as you guys can see, we have pretty much achieved that look by just installing the front coilovers. So overall, I'm really happy with the way this looks from the back. That booty sitting nice and high. Now if this thing makes it through winter, sorry for the road noise, if this thing makes it through winter without any issues, what I will probably do is throw the rear coilovers in just to dump the back and then completely slam the front. These cars really ride rough when they're super slammed, but I have to admit they do look really nice. So aside from that, I'm thinking that's pretty much it for this video. Now one other thing that I have decided over the last couple of days is I will be paint matching the front and rear bumpers this kind of champagne goldy color here. I was going to do a full rattle can paint job on this car, but to be honest, it's going to be a big job. It's probably going to cost, you know, probably 3 times as much as it would cost just for me to get the front bumpers painted. And if I screw it up and it looks like crap, I'm going to be stuck with a car that has a janky paint job, and I don't have too much experience painting full cars with Rust-Oleum. So what I think I'm going to do is just paint match the bumpers. Now that I got everything looking nice and lowered, it actually doesn't even look that bad with this color. But I'm thinking we are probably going to put an end to this video. If you guys did enjoy this one, don't forget to smash that like button. If you guys are pleased with the progress on the Altima and you're not subscribed, definitely do so. But we have pretty much an even wheel gap from the front to the back. And that's pretty much what I was looking for on this car, man. Didn't want it slammed. I drove a slammed Altima before, and those front subframes, well, for those of you low Altima and Maxima guys, those front subframes are absolutely relentless. But as always, I'm your boy D Nolly, aka Don Squally, and with that being said, we gonna catch y'all mofos at the next one, man. Peace.